Warp Core Breach, Episode 30, The Gauntlet.
Captain, enemy ships decloaking off our port bow.
They're charging weapons!
Shields up, red alert!
They're firing!
Containment failure detected. Warp core breach imminent.
Welcome to Warp Core Breach, Episode 30. On this episode, Nick and David throw down the No OXP Gauntlet. They also recap the Doomsday OP and discuss other community posts of note. Griffin protects the outpost. Natasha rejoices in the people of Wave 2. And finally, we all pick up arms in a discussion on our top secondary weapons.
Warning. Warp core breach detected.
I'm David Montgomery, and here's my co-host, the Tyrellian to my Vidian.
Hey, it's no skin off my back.
Oh, I'm sure the good doctor can fix that.
I'd like to see him try. Yeah, well, there was that whole blight thing, wasn't there?
I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. We were just harvesting organs for research and to stay alive. You do what you gotta do.
Yeah, well.
I mean, if we didn't get to them first, it was going to be the Borg.
Well, hey, if you take care of it first, then the Borg take care of you, well, they ignore you, don't they?
No, that's the Kazon.
Alright. Yeah, they'll take your technology and just kill you. I think that's probably all it is.
Yeah, we at least had technology the Borg wanted. We were one step above the Kazon.
Hey! Well, anything that keeps the Borg organic tissue from necrotizing quite as quickly, would certainly help.
Yeah. Although at this point I'm thinking that space dust might have been one step above the Kazon.
How about space dust bunnies?
Ooh. That would actually be a really good before and after puzzle on Wheel of Fortune.
Yes, it would. So in case you haven't noticed already, the whole Tyrellian Vidian thing is we're both kind of under the weather, so you'll have to bear with us.
As they say, the show must go on.
Magic time.
So if you notice our voices steadily getting worse as the show goes on, well, yeah, that's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's more than just the cracks of puberty, folks. It's like full on up and down and all around and breaking like broken glass.
The good news is, though, my illness has given me plenty of time to edit.
Ooh. Meanwhile, I still have to work my job.
You and your responsibilities.
Oh, God. Responsibility? Isn't that like a watch?
Yeah, something like that.
Rugrats.
But yeah, hopefully by the time this goes to air, the shipyard will have the entire recap of my Doomsday OP, which is good. I know that as we're recording, I already have match 1 up, and match 2 is slated to go up pretty quick, so...
Yeah, I'll be playing ours on Wednesday, so 2 days from now as of recording, and a day or two hence from by the time you hear this.
Oh, that's good. You have any notions for what you're bringing as far as a list?
Well, I have a couple of ideas, but again, as I'm the TO, I'm only going to play if it's an odd number of people, because I don't want to force people to get a buy.
Yeah, I understand that. I would do that, but I spent enough tournaments only having like 3 people show up. I'm like, I just really want to play.
Oh, absolutely, but my group has finally got to the point where we're sitting pretty at almost 6 guaranteed every time, if not more. So,
oh yeah,
I'm happy at that. When it was just like 3 or 4 or whatever, we'd play anyway, right?
Yeah, I totally get that. No, and there's probably going to be a time where if there's 9 people, I'm going to be like, yeah, you know what, forget it. I'm good. Especially if it's one of those like, hey, I was up last night. I've got like 4 hours of sleep. I'm going to be here in the corner just taking a little bit of a nap. If you have a rules question, just poke.
Poke with a stick.
I'll be good.
Preferably a pain stick.
Just poke with a long stick so I don't hit you too hard when I'm like, go away.
Yeah, something just out of reach of your Tyrannosaurus Rex arms.
Yeah. Now I will say in regards to the Doomsday, we did the house rule where if there's nothing for it to target, it does a 1 forward. And we found that to be essential to actually making the scenario matter.
Okay.
Otherwise, it was just going to sit in the corner and never, ever move.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll just spring that on my people and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those... Otherwise, everybody just sets up on the opposite end of the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just joust in a lane. And it's like, why? Why would you bother?
Baba Black Sheep.
Yeah. No, it still took quite a long time for the Doomsday to get in range, but it actually did take some shots at the end of the game, and in one of my matches, I didn't want it to shoot at one of my ships, so I shot at it with another one of my ships, so it would shoot back at that ship.
Right.
And I was like, in hindsight, that was actually a bit of a clever move on my part. I was like, oh, hey, that actually worked. It ended up destroying that ship, but I was okay. I just didn't want it to blow up my big ship.
Yeah.
Gotta give a little, gotta take a little. Let your poor heart break a little.
Yeah, and the night before, so tomorrow for me now, I'll be painting up the Doomsday Machine token and models that I did in 3D printer, but and I'll be bringing those for the tournament for people to play with, and I haven't decided how many, but I'm going to give at least one away as a prize.
That'll be awesome.
I'll probably give 2 away. One to the main winner, and then one for like MVP or something.
Yeah,
I haven't decided.
Most thematic list.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Person who dares to bring 3 constitutions.
Yes. Or even at least 2. Because there's, 2 in the episode, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's at least 2.
For every constitution you bring, you get an entry into a random drawing.
Yeah, and if you bring Decker, that counts as well as an entry.
There you go.
Either Commander Decker, or Commodore Decker, not Will.
Where there's a will, there's not a way.
Yeah. Where there's a will, there's no way. You lose an entry.
Oh.
And a shield, but you gain an attack die.
No, just a crit result.
On yourself.
But yeah, so I'm actually not going to spoil too much of the Doomsday event since it'll all be up on the shipyard, but we got 4 matches captured. We had feature table round 1, 2, 3, and then feature table round 3 ended quickly, so we moved the camera over and caught the other game.
Yeah.
So that's all there, and it'll be up on the shipyard, and it's definitely worth watching. We had a lot of different thoughts that went into the games, and I'm just checking one thing here.
While you're doing that, I just want to say it to you listeners here is, if you've never considered watching a recorded game of Attack Wing, give it a second thought, because just like the whole world championships of video games and all that kind of stuff, some people may find it boring, but if you actually play the game you're watching, there's a lot you can learn from how it's played, not just from the builds. You can only get so much from looking at someone's list, but the technique, the style of movement, sometimes little tricks of where they start for their placement in relation to their movement and everything else, it all comes together. And even if you only learn one thing, that could make a huge difference going forward.
Yeah. So what I was checking on was the different resources used. And our venue, we only had 5 this time. But of those 5 lists, one person chose not to run a resource at all. But the 4 that did ran 4 different resources.
Cool.
Tactics, Protocol, Emergency Force Field, and Officer Exchange Program.
Oh, yeah.
And after seeing the results from Whitby Regionals up in Canada, and seeing like almost all 16 people run Officer Exchange Program,
yeah.
I wanted to point out that there are other resources that are really good.
Oh, no kidding.
And I want to point out that the championship match for us was protocol versus no resource.
Yeah.
An officer exchange program finished 0-2-1.
Oh.
So it's not like officer exchange program is the only resource that's a legitimate resource these days.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like we're dealing with imbalances like one meta's doing like mixed, one's doing a variation on pure, and so on and so forth, where officer exchange can have more of an impact. This is just suggested rule. So it's open and it's all the same, right?
Yeah. Well, and I have a theory that I'm working on how to write it up, and my sick brain isn't letting it all come together. But the basis of it is that the resources that cost points, as long as they do an effective thing for your build, are actually the best thing because they don't give your opponents the points unless your opponent tables you.
Right.
And the question mark resources, like emergency force field, are actually even better in the blind format because if your opponent kills the blind, which is typically the easiest ship to kill,
Mm-hmm.
they get less points for it.
Right.
So you can trade boosters and you come out ahead. So there's more that I have to say on that, and I want to take the time to work it out.
Right.
But that's the start of it, and I want people to think about it because there's something there, and in a game that only lasts an hour, points become a really important thing.
No kidding. I've seen so many games recently come down to ties, or even just being a point or two off.
Well, yeah, I was in a match. I was going to be tied,
Mm-hmm.
and then I remembered that I underbuilt by a point.
Right.
And so my opponent was going to be ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, great, now what do I do?
Mm.
I have to get a second ship.
Right.
And that creates a little bit of a sense of panic. And when you do that, now you're putting yourself in a bad position.
Mm-hmm.
And your opponent can capitalize on that. So, yeah, underbuilding was a strategy. I needed it for initiative for Gen Cisco.
Right.
But you got to weigh those pros and cons.
Mm-hmm. Until they revise the way the fleet points are gathered for counting in the end, you really got to weigh the benefits, the pros and the cons and everything.
Yeah, I'd really like them to switch over to more of an X-Wing style where essentially you get what you kill.
Yeah. That's generally the way I like to play it, but, you know, if you're playing a regionals or something, you got to go strictly by the book.
No, I get that. We actually had a fun scenario where somebody used one of the tech cards that's like roll 3 dice, and if you roll a hit, they have to discard a tech.
Right.
Well, now you're forcing the discard, so you get those points.
Yep.
And that was the only thing that they killed, so the final score was 130-3.
Nice.
But it's like, you get those 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Those are yours, and nobody can take them away from you.
And hey, in some cases that might mean victory for you if you each take a ship relatively same, and what you destroy or what you steal or force discard just puts you right over the top.
Oh yeah, I mean, if it had gone booster, that would have been a winning play.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually worried about that card when I saw it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that could be bad for me.
There's been a lot of public chatter, which is why I'm not keeping hush about this, about the upcoming Wrath of Khan OP for Classics, where the Mutara Nebula, your shields are down, so you're fair game for all those cards that say, oh, no active shields, not cloaked. You can't cloak, you can't have shields, so every single one of those cards you're vulnerable to.
Yeah.
So there could be some fun shenanigans and some neat alternative options that you might never have thought of playing or wanted to play until this scenario. It's like another spin on the whole peak performance where Tholians are actually viable.
Yeah, which is huge that they're giving us a scenario where alternative builds can matter.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, I'm sitting there going, oh, there go my improved deflector screens.
Shield Equinox Dreadnought.
Yeah, it's don't even bother.
Yeah. Like, you can try your jousting, but
Yeah, Borg Scout Cubes, don't bring them. You just lost 2/3 of your durability.
Yeah.
You just no.
Chronotons don't matter.
Right? And anything that bypasses shields don't really matter.
Nope.
But that's on the Mutara Nebula half of it.
Well, it's a little more than half.
Okay, 2/3 of it.
At least. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lane of no nebula.
Mm-hmm. So, are we going to get some resistance is futile factor going again here? Are we going to have people trying to just joust there? Maybe throw some lures and stuff like that in the mix to force people into the nebula?
I mean, if you want to fight in the nebula and you come across an opponent who doesn't, you probably want to bring lure.
Yeah.
So that you can force them in.
Drive them.
You know, that's a thing. That's something to consider. It'll be really interesting to see what's there. And we should be seeing the Reliant prize pack any day now.
Ooh, can't wait.
Actually, by the time this goes live, stores should get it. Stores should be getting it on March 30th.
Exciting.
But, yeah. Hey, I know I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Knowing what the other Reliant's going to be is a big thing. I'm super excited for the movie OPs.
Oh, yeah. Filling out the missing text on those partially blocked card images would be nice, just to get the full flavor.
Yeah, it would be really nice.
Yeah, I posted I don't know how to explain it or describe it, but I basically went through the images and scrutinized over every last pixel I could at different zoom levels and extrapolated as best as I could what all the cards said. And I posted that on the community pages on Facebook, and if you're curious, go check it out. You know, if you're not patient enough to wait, it'll give you some neat little teases, but once we get the first reveal, it's gonna be pounce. I'm salivating already.
Yeah, I definitely miss the days of being like, hey, I know what's coming. I'll have the video soon.
Yeah, you kind of got to sit on your laurels and bite your tongue for a while, and now you're waiting in the wings with the rest of us, you know, tongue hanging out, drooling, and yeah.
Yeah. But, hey, though, it's funny because I inevitably end up finding out news sooner than anybody else does. I guess it's because I go looking for it.
Yeah, like one of the things that I came across, you know, early on in my time as a TO is how to find the solicits so I could know what's coming up at the same time as the stores do. Sometimes even before them if they don't check immediately. Or around the same time at least, but before the general populace. So that was kind of cool.
Right, and that's all I do. I have access to the store account, and so I just go in and look at the solicits, and that's how I saw, hey look, Trouble with Tribbles OP. Hey look, Klingon Civil War 3 months.
Yeah, I just fluked across the right Google search string and I was able to scoop them up.
You know, they're not exactly hidden.
No.
I honestly don't know why players can't see the solicitations. I don't know why it's a retailer-only thing.
Yeah. Like, does it really matter how much a retailer pays for an OP kit? Really? No. And most of the time, what we want to see has nothing to do with that anyway. What we want to see is, like, what is it called? Like, so what the general theme's going to be, what the prize ship may or may not be, or pack, and is the case is going to be going forward. So we're just excited about the prospects for the future. We want our appetite to be satiated.
Right. And what I'm kind of bummed out now is that, you know, Klingon Civil War announced, yay, prize ships, prize packs, no names on those yet.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Like, we know there's going to be one actual ship model, but we don't know what's what.
Right, the grand prize, just like they did for the movies, which is cool, and that means, hey, that grand prize could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be a starbase.
Future Enterprise.
It could be the Feckler.
That would be cool. An alternate universe variation on the
Negvar.
Which was called the Vudia in the finale.
Yeah.
Or however it's pronounced. Vudi.
Yeah, I like Voodoo.
Look, I got the Voodoo.
I mean, we don't know.
No.
We have no idea what it is. I mean, maybe Klingon fighters.
Oh, wow.
How pissed off would the community be if Klingon fighters were a grand prize?
Rage quit. That wouldn't be me, by the way. But still.
No.
Wow. Like, as I was going to say before I kind of interrupted myself, was that as much as I love exclusive stuff and how it feels good to get my hands on it, I really think we need to go away from some of the really cool, like the coolest or the best stuff in the game comes from prize kits. Right? Like, it's neat and it's cool to get different ships and all this kind of stuff, but the variations, the card arts or the special tokens and those things really should be enough for competitive players, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that resources are the things you get for showing up.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do anything to get them.
Yep.
You just have to play.
Right.
And, I mean, like, I've set it up, my venue, you get them you can get them the moment you walk in the door if you want to run them for that OP.
Yeah.
Because they retire 18 months from the day the OP comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, whatever resource we just got for Doomsday will retire in September of 2017, not October.
Mm.
So it's really more like a 17-month window.
Yeah.
Which, it's like, if it was truly 18 months, it would retire in October.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that. So that's why we give people the option to run it the month it comes out.
Right.
Because, there's enough preview and you can figure out what the resource is and say, oh, do I want to run that?
Mm-hmm.
Not this time.
Right. And some venues have even said you can include the participation resource for free in addition to your build.
Yeah.
Like, I tried it like a year and a half ago where you use that one in the tournament each time, but I immediately after one event realized, well, wait, then what would be the point for competitive? Because you'd never be able to use the other resources for constructed, right? I was still pretty green at the time, so bear with me there.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of being able to double up in that sense to try something out once, right?
Then there gets to be some really wacky interactions. But
no kidding.
the more you play around with it, the better it can happen. I liken it to a board game I love, my favorite board game of all time, Cosmic Encounter, which works with variable player powers. And when you just have one each, the rules aren't that weird. But when you get to double powers, everything goes to pieces. Now, it can work the more you've experienced the game. Eventually you go, okay, this is how this combos, this is how this interacts with this. And then you go, well, how does this work with this? I don't know. Let's vote on this. Okay, guys. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Okay, let's do this.
Can you imagine a double question mark resource?
Yeah, no.
Oh, that would be painful.
It would be very, very painful.
Does not compute. Nomad blows up.
Bioship cannot be run.
Oh, the only one that can be run is the Interceptor 8.
Yeah. Oh, look, it adds no extra points. Congratulations.
By some weird fluke, it gives you more. Yeah, well, quick personal announcement. I'm coming out of the dice closet here. I just recently allowed myself to get sucked into Dice Masters.
One of us. One of us.
I'm strictly DC for the moment. World's Finest just came out. I'm a Superman fan. Just saw the movie last week. No spoilers. So don't worry about that. And I'm kind of capitalizing on that right now. And once I get comfortable, then I'll branch out. So I'm only like 5 days in. So, and I've already pulled 3 super rares, so I'm happy.
Yeah?
Yep. Shout out to my buddy Adam, who got me into it in the first place by giving me some free cards and dice. And to Jenna, who's been trying to give me free stuff for ages, but we could never just connect. And she's the local TO. So you'll get your turn. You'll get your turn, Jenna. I promise.
Oh, is she the one that makes all the cool dice bags?
I think so.
Oh, yeah. I bought a Star Trek dice bag from her.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another fellow, Brendan Tang, I believe, he's designed the Green Lantern dice tower and the Avengers dice tower. Avengers Tower dice tower, yeah.
Okay. See, I know bits and pieces of the dice tower community, and no, folks, we're not turning this into a dice tower podcast. Don't worry.
Oh, it's unrelated to Dice Tower. It's a tower for rolling your dice that you can 3D print.
Sorry, we're not turning this into a Dice Masters podcast either.
There you go. It's a WizKids property, so I figured I could get away with it. So, a little bit of leeway because of WizKids, because we give a little bit of leeway to X-Wing because it's flight path-ish related deal,
The only way we'll turn this into a Dice Masters podcast is if they ever do Star Trek Dice Masters.
Well, in that case, I think, David, we need to do multiple shows. We'll just kind of record them back to back, and we'll just spit them out and make them both available.
Okay.
But, yeah, if they do Star Trek Dice Masters, I'm sunk.
See, as some people know, I ran regionals for Star Trek and Dice Masters, so I've got feet in both ponds, as they say. Yeah,
you're all wet.
Yep. WizKids just basically has a direct line to my bank account. It's unfortunate. I'm trying to turn that around.
Your money just bypasses your wallet altogether. It just goes, check, bank, WizKids.
Oh, don't forget Natasha.
Well, that's not for me to say.
Oh, I know. All right.
Back to Star.
Yes, is there anything else in the world of Star? Oh, yes! I finally have the Zindi Sphere. Weapon 0.
Zindi Weapon 0.
Yes.
Good on you.
I haven't unboxed it yet. I'm a little sad about that. But it's sitting here. It tempts me. It taunts me. It tasks me.
Yeah, we're going to go into stasis while you guys and gals absorb the wonderful awesomeness that is our contributors.
Is that a projected stasis field or cryogenic stasis?
I'm thinking cryogenic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll be back in 2 turns.
All right.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. Today we're talking about the mission Protect the Outposts. It came with the Kraxon, and it replicates, though not very closely, the DS9 Defiant episode with a little bit of Maquis Parts 1 and through thrown in. Now the forces on the Cardassian side, 64 SP plus 3 12-point outposts for a total of 100 points, including at least 1 Galler-class cruiser. The outposts are 2033s with scan, battle station, or target lock actions and 1 crew, weapon, and tech upgrade slot if you want to use it. They have no maneuvers, but they have a 360 arc, and it doesn't say the range, so presumably 1 to 3, Captain Skill 1, and they count as obstacles. On the Renegade side, 100 SP, no restrictions. Now, in the Defiant episode, Thomas Riker, the duplicate of Will Riker, stole the Defiant while masquerading as Will Riker. So, one of the Renegade ships should probably be the Defiant if you want to use it. Now, the Renegades start on the south edge, the Cardassians start on the north edge, and the outpost, one of them is in the exact center of the board, and the other 2 are to the west and east of that, 4 inches from the edges of the east and west side of the board. The Cardassians' objective is to destroy the Renegade ships. The Renegade objective is to destroy the outposts. It doesn't matter whether they destroy the Cardassian ships. Now, the problem with this mission is that these outposts are not worth 12 points apiece, not with a 2 weapon and 0 evade. So, in order for the Cardassians to have a chance, you're going to have to discount the cost of those outposts. I don't know exactly how much. If I had to make a guess based on my plays, I would say count each one of those as maybe 7 points, so 21 points instead of 36 points, and let the Cardassians fill out the rest of their fleet with those extra points. I think if you do that, the Cardassians will have a chance. Now, on the Cardassian side, you're probably using one ship and a fighter squadron, or 2 ships on the normal points. You might be able to squeeze that to 2 ships and a fighter squadron if you use those extra points from the cheaper versions of the outpost. Now, what do you do if the enemy splits up and starts going at different ones of your outposts? That's a tough one. I would stay together and try and destroy those ships, because if you don't destroy the ships, they're going to eventually destroy the outposts. One possible upgrade you might put on the outposts is Tetryon emissions, because even though outposts can't evade, they can use upgrades which allow you to roll defense dice. Now, on the Renegade side, if you want to be historical, you can use the USS Defiant plus one of the Will Riker upgrades, pretending it's Tom Riker. For the Defiant, upgrades like upgraded phasers is good, because if the enemy brings a fighter squadron, you can use upgraded phasers to double tap at them. The Maquis Raiders are thematic, possibly even a Kumari class. Maybe the Raiders got an old Kumari from the Andorians. It seems plausible. You might want to split up and give the harder tactical problem to the enemy. You could either ignore the Cardassians and go straight for the outpost, and in the standard scenario where the Cardassians are paying 12 points per outpost, that is almost certainly going to work. Or you could attack the Cardassians directly, in which case, given that they're having 64 points of ships and they maybe have 1 outpost in range and you have 100 points, you're probably going to slaughter them and then slaughter the outposts, which is why I recommend you give the Cardassians a few more points. It still can be a fun scenario if you give the Cardassians a few more points. One of the weaknesses of this game is that it's hard to protect something else, another ship or an outpost, because it's hard to make other ships shoot at you. If you can find some upgrades that do allow you to redirect fire, like Mirror Bashir, for instance, you might want to cross-faction and get some of those upgrades. But I wish you guys the best of luck, and like I said, I think it's slanted against the Cardassians, so you might want to discount those outposts. Have fun. I'd rate it about, I'd say 2.5 stars given the limitations, and say I think it's worth playing. Thanks. I'll see you next week.
Are you tired of always building to win?
Do you love playing but struggle to build fleets?
Do you struggle to defeat the guy who has everything?
Do you wish you could play the game without being so serious?
Then we've got the segment for you.
This is Natasha.
And Dave. And you're listening to
Dude, It's Just a Game.
Alright, we are back. And I have been looking at Wave 2, and I can just not decide.
Well, I can, but that's not what we're here for.
Well, I just think Wave 2 is so great in the amount of really good people we got out of it. Now, I know we're kind of tending to talk about people that don't get run a lot, but there was a lot of amazing crew and captains that we got out of Wave 2. I just feel it deserves mentioning more than anything else.
Gul Dukat.
So, yes, of course, Captain Gul Dukat. He's pretty great. Not gonna lie. He gets run a ton because he's just amazing. There's Captain Sulu. He's decent.
No, he's not.
Pretty good. You've said that you've seen Ingaren run a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen it, but...
Well, because people run Drex instead. They're interchangeable. Same effect, different name.
Sure. Well, and then there's Captain Worf, who does get run quite frequently.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of the coin, there's Golovec, a captain who does the same thing for defense.
Yeah.
So if you're running a defense ship or you need more defense, that's a great one to have.
Hey, put him on a cloaking ship.
right?
That's the time for them.
Exactly. And then, of course, Bohica is probably the most run through ever.
Yeah, that's... Well, maybe not so much anymore. Yeah, Bohica and Gul Dukat were like BFFs for a long time.
And then, of course, one that I saw that is kind of cool that I've never seen run is Janice Rand. And also Loger. Both of those I've never seen run, but I could see myself putting them into a build.
Yeah. Although, try to justify Saylock to me. No. Okay, moving on.
I would put him under Garib.
Except you don't do that to crew, but...
I don't know.
I get your point. And let's not forget Dimitri Valtain.
I successfully ran Dimitri Valtain in our last tournament.
Yeah? The Void?
I mean, successfully is a loose term, but I did.
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing Valtain run.
Yeah. And a lot of these cards are just really great in the right combination. Alexander, we haven't even mentioned Alexander, such a great crew. Doesn't get run as far as I know.
Yeah, not anymore. People seem to have this aversion to taking damage. Something about dying from warp core breaches.
What? You know what, though? I don't even care about warp core breaches anymore. It's really, really just that direct hit that gets me every time.
I thought you were going to say the stunned helmsman, but...
No, I have lost many games, because that direct hit comes up right at the same time. Anyways, we're getting off topic here. So, just kind of looking at really just all the people that they put out in this wave. I'm really glad that we have a lot of these. There's some really great, and of course the Talent Massacre showed up in this wave, and Transwarp Drive was good.
Positron Beam.
We're gonna have to agree to disagree about that one.
Okay. I know Brunt does it better, but he comes out later, but Positron Beam's still a lot of fun. But yeah, I think we're at this point. Gullivec's like a highlight for what we're trying to do in this segment. You need to run him more, people.
I mean, really, especially like you said Officer Exchange Program's only there for a little while longer, but run him cross-faction and put him on a cloaking ship, put him on a ship that naturally rolls a bunch of defense dice, and, really use his ability the way that it's meant to be used. It's not an action, it's not a disable, it's not a discard, it's just that's what you do. So it's really nice.
Yeah.
And just my personal opinion, people should be flying the Karaga more. David disagrees. I think it's a good ship.
Well, it's better than the Vo. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for us today. So until next time, remember that, dude,
it's just a game.
Good evening, and welcome to the Faction Report. The segment that brings you the inside scoop on all the factions. We'll show you how they really work, expose their weaknesses, find innovative combinations, and help you make them work better. And now here's your host, the man who is not Picard, David Walton.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Faction Report. I'm not Picard. Today I thought I'd take some time to discuss what I feel are some of the distinguishing cards from a particular faction. I thought I'd start with Dominion. Now, Dominion are probably the faction I like the idea of the most. The Dominion were introduced to the Star Trek universe as a kind of anti-Federation, a combination of different races that were not working towards a benevolent goal but towards a malevolent goal, which is what distinguished them from the Federation. And I like the way that they almost have three distinct factions within a faction. I know some players were a little bit upset that the Dominion got access to the Cardassians on their own rather than making the Cardassians a faction in their own right, and certainly a lot of the cards that you have in faction for Dominion didn't appear as part of the Dominion on screen. They appeared as part of the Cardassian Union, and then the Dominion Cardassian Alliance came later. But for me, Dominion are a faction that provides you with quite a lot of flexibility, quite a lot of opportunities, and there's a couple of tricks in there as well, which is nice. So, the Dominion, what cards do I consider to be like defining cards for the Dominion? And by that I mean, on the one hand, it's cards that you would use frequently, and on the other hand, it's cards that kind of make the faction a little bit different from the other factions. So definitely falling into the first category is cards that you would use frequently would be Gul Dukat. And I mean the Gul Dukat that comes with the Coronac expansion. Gul Dukat says as a free action you can perform either an evade or a battle stations action, which is really good and it's really useful. I don't think it's particularly defining for the Dominion, but it is a card that I use more often than not. It's command skill 7. Great way of getting battle stations on a ship that doesn't have battle stations, which Dominion have, in terms of the half of the Cardassian ships don't have the battle stations upgrade or action on their action bar, and also the Breen ships. Not that I've ever run Dukat with a Breen ship, but you know, there is that option there. And I think Dukat pairs particularly well with another kind of defining faction card, both in terms of how frequently you'd use them, and also I think it's a bit of a unique Dominion ability, and that is Bahika. I absolutely love Bahika. 2 points. He synergizes with himself, as I've said before, other people have said before, and he gives you converts a blank to a hit as long as you've got a battle stations token beside your ship. Where do you get the battle stations token from? Gul Dukat. That's why the balance works so well. Now, another card that I think is distinctly Cardassian, but is within the Dominion faction, is Gul Madred. And I don't necessarily think that Gul Madred synergizes particularly well with either Gul Dukat or Bahika. It's been said by others, people much wiser than me, that Madred is often best used as a captain rather than as an admiral. But I've thought that one of the drawbacks really to Gul Dukat is that he's only captain skill 7. That might seem crazy because 7's still, you know, above average, but I find certainly in my meta a lot of people will stack captain skill as high as possible, so that Dukat, even though he's in captain skill 7, is still not firing first. So one of the things I like to do with him is I like to combine Gul Dukat with Gul Madred. I've actually found more often than not I don't end up using Gul Madred's ability. Either there isn't a call for it, or even if there is call for it, there are better things to do with your action than kill your opposing captain, or at least have a chance of killing your opponent's captain. But I really like that those 3 cards in combination: Gul Dukat, Gul Madred, and Bahika. As for a ship to put them on, I would usually put them on the Coronac. Its primary weapon value is 5, which is a good thing for it, but it also has that 180 front firing arc. It's not the most durable ship in the world, but when you combine it with Aft Weapons Array, which is another card I think is a typically Dominion card, it gives you basically 360 coverage around the ship. And even though you're using your ship action to re-enable the Aft Weapons Array, most of the time, because it's got such a terrible dial, you do get the opportunity to use that battle stations token from Gul Dukat, which along with Bahika still gives you some credibility. So it's just, I think anyway, perhaps more a Cardassian than a Dominion thing, but certainly a really good Dominion ship that you can use is the Coronac, Gul Madred, Gul Dukat, Bahika, Aft Weapons Array. That's basically all you need, and you've got a really solid ship there, and a ship that is useful but also distinctively Dominion. I hope that's been useful for you in some way. I hope you've enjoyed my ramblings on the topic. What do I know? I'm not Picard.
And now it's time for the Warp Core Breach Top 3. We count them up from 3 to 1, and then we toss it over to our contributors, so you get the best bang for your buck. This episode's Top 3: Top Secondary Weapons.
Secondary weapons. Pew pew. I'm actually reminiscing that old Ewok movie where it was like Wicket was going, Stakuza, crash! Like, oh boy.
No. No.
Well, at least it's better than the 78 Star Wars Christmas special.
Yeah, I've never watched that.
I have a copy.
I'm sorry. All right. So, we've got a top 3. We've got a little bit of overlap. Not much, though. It's actually kind of nice not to have too much overlap.
Well, my number 3 is more of a category because I wanted to open it up to whatever faction people like to play, and especially someone like myself who plays a lot of different factions. You know, it works. So, for me, my number 3 secondary weapon concept is 360 firing. Whether it's the dorsal phaser array, dorsal weapons array, aft disruptor emitters, so on and so forth. Any reasonably priced weapon card that can give your ship the ability to fire in 360 degree arc.
Yeah, I like it. I think that what we need there are a couple of those that aren't disable, because the Fed dorsal phaser array seems to stand head and shoulders above the rest, even though it tends to be the most expensive.
Yeah, you're paying a premium for that. It would be nice to have more use of the time token mechanic, so you have to spend to buy a second one. So like say you only have 2 time tokens, so you have to wait 1 turn cool off. You're willing to spend the points to put a second one on, then they can flip-flop, alternate back and forth. Kind of like a piston engine in space. Pew, 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 pew. Shooting gallery.
Yeah, you know? Or one that's like Voyager's.
Take an aux. You know, you can build in a lot of these, or even Enterprise Ds, which is cost, but 1 less die than normal. Yeah.
And you can make some of those things work rather well. You just have to be not even creative with it, but willing to go in different directions other than this disable to fire.
Yeah. Like, in my opinion, choosing hull as the deciding factor for compatibility on the dorsal phaser array might not have been the best choice. I think they kind of learned from that a little bit with what they're doing with Type 8s and upgradeds and go based on primary weapon value instead.
Yeah.
Like just have it where you need like a minimum of 4. Because generally speaking, you know, other than like the science vessels and stuff of TNG and newer, most of the older ships had point-to-point. They had locked-in locations for their phaser banks. Like the original series Enterprise had 2 ports in the front part of the saucer, 2 ports on either side of the saucer, which is why they're basically giving it a 180. But I don't recall them having shown actual phaser ports pointing to the rear. I do believe someone said that there was a episode where they shot phasers backwards, but I don't recall it off the top of my head.
Yeah,
so
I think typically you saw torpedoes, but...
Yeah.
But that does give a better explanation for the 180. Anyways, my number 3, Disruptor Beams. Now, this could have been Quantum Torpedoes, but Disruptor Beams are just a little bit better in my book.
Gee, why is that, David?
It's because you don't have to have a target lock.
Ha-ha!
Meaning, you can use your target lock to re-roll.
Or, if you're facing cloakers or monotanium armor users, you can still use it.
Yeah.
It's not a waste of points. Photon torpedoes!
So that's the good side of it. And you know what? Typically, you're going to get that extra hit in anyways. So
yeah.
It's a good weapon. I don't use it a lot.
I like it on the prototype, the Flea.
Yeah, because
small Romulan craft.
Then you at least get use out of that rear 90 on the drone.
Yes.
Even then, like, I really don't use a ton of secondary weapons. This is one that at least makes me consider it. So
yeah. The meta's shifted primarily to primary weapons, with the exception of what we've started to discuss and what we're going to get into as you continue listening.
All right. So, number 2. You know that not much overlap? Well, here it is.
Yeah, I merged these two simply because most times they're going to be paired together. That is, the Type 8 phasers and the upgraded phasers. Now, obviously, one is better than the other when having to choose between the two. But like I said, they go so well together that unless somebody official says you can't use them both, you might as well make good use.
Well, so here's my thing. Upgraded won out for me because I like the anti-fighter portion of it.
Absolutely, you're dead on right.
But Type 8 can go on more things.
It's not faction locked.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not even like plus a whole bunch of points for faction going
just
off
straight
faction.
penalty.
It's just the standard 1 point. If you've ever had to play a prototype that puts Type 8 on it and gets a 4th die, a 4-3-3-3 prototype is a lot scarier than a 3-3-3-3 prototype.
Oh, absolutely. Especially one like your averages of rolling evades for most defense dice, you've just crossed that threshold. Like if someone's rolling cloak dice or non-cloak with added dice, you've just crossed that 2 evade to 3 evade range with the potential of 3 and 4 hits with quality. So you've got a really good chance of getting at least 1 damage through, more if you've got other shenanigans or they roll poorly.
Yeah. Plus the prototype's already scary, so I hate facing prototypes. Not quite as much as I hate facing scimitars, but put them both together and I'm just like, nope, don't want to do this.
Does that bring us to number 1s, David?
It does indeed.
Well, I don't think you can talk about weapons of any kind, even in concept, without bringing up Barrage of Fire. This is what makes swarming a reality in Star Trek Attack Wing. You're taking 2 ships and you're throwing all their dice in 1 attack, and they only get to roll their defense once, not twice. And that takes the biscuit. I've taken out bioships in 1 shot quite easily with these. Granted, sometimes I'm also using projected stasis field on another ship, but anyway. Yeah.
This is one that was at least on my short list and made me go, it's there. I like it. And I have run Barrage of Fire. I enjoy what it brings, and like you've said, it really is the cornerstone of swarm fleets. I haven't been running it lately. I think the last time I even considered it was back in like Matter of Honor.
Oh yeah.
Timeline. So that's close to a year ago.
I generally only use it when I play Klingon Pure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like full-on Klingon Fleet Pure, too.
Yeah. Because it feels thematic. It feels right.
Yeah. And I usually do it with like a swarm of like a pair of cavorts and a Vorcha, or 3 cavorts, now that we have 3. And dice quality is amazing. Like I usually get like 9 dice pulling the dice off the Vorcha onto the cavort, and pretty much guaranteed 8 of them are going to be hits and crits. The luck only comes down to that 9th die.
Yeah. Well, especially if you can get like Worf Drex in there.
Yep. Yeah, I've got Drex and Nagarin in both the cavorts, and Worf is usually on one of the ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
I got some killer quality.
Yeah. It's the quality you need. So.
Yeah. And that's the thing I like about playing Klingons Pure, is they're one of the few factions where I can play them tight, neat, low points, and just fly them. Just play the game and don't have to worry too much about, do I have to remember how to trigger this and do this, and I got to do this at the right time. They're just play for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Barrage of Fire, definitely a worthy top pick to me.
The only thing I would put against the Barrage of Fire is because it's an old OP card in a prize ship from way back in Dominion OP 2.
Yeah. It's just not a card that everybody's going to have.
No, and that's the other reason why I don't play it too often, because it's just not fair.
Now, on the flip side of that, it is a card that nowadays somebody at your venue's probably going to have and not be running. Mm-hmm. So if you want to run it, I would think if you made arrangements ahead of time, they'll probably say yes. I mean, for goodness sakes, I was able to get a Quark borrowed at the last OP. And that's something I did not think was going to happen. But there you go.
Well, I've got a set of them, so I'm happy.
Yeah. All right. So
what's your number one?
Well, the one thing that I think I can throw against you to compete against Barrage of Fire is Magnetometric Guided Charge.
That was originally on my list, but I knew it would come up, so I knocked it down strictly for that reason.
Now, I'm not talking straight up Meg charges. I'm talking about Meg charges with either more dice or better quality. Now, they already get decent quality. Convert a battle station into a crit.
Yeah, they're only 3 dice to start, so come on.
But I'm saying, let's run them with, like, Picard 8.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're rolling 2 dice, and we've already set a crit.
Yeah.
Do you like double crit Meg charges? Because I do. Or Golma set. That gives you a 4th die. How about Denatra on a friendly ship? That's 5.
Yeah, you could do stalking mode. You could do resistance is futile.
Oh yeah, resistance is futile. You got to figure out the right kind of captain to get resistance is futile, because then you need a Borg captain to get the Borg drones. Drone
tokens.
Right.
Or if you're going crazy mix and you've got the point spread for it, you could do the Borg Alliance.
Borg Alliance, yeah, but then that works on, like, Carr or Romulan Commander, or you need to bring an Admiral or Garrick or Riker. Pa Riker.
One of 3 retired resources will also do the trick.
Yeah, true.
But at that point, you're getting into mega points, and you've got no hope if you're playing suggested. One.
Right.
So, trying to keep this within the realm of reason for any player.
Now, all that being said, you did bring up a good point. Resistance is futile with Meg charges. You want to make sure that those dice go through past anything, evade tokens, enhanced hull plating, whatever else might be a thing. That'll do it.
Uncancelable dice. Yeah, and we were discussing it earlier. What's one of the few things that could actually protect you against this?
Interface generator.
Dun dun dun.
Which is really unfortunate, because Interface Generator is protecting you against way too many things these days.
No kidding. There's enough stuff that can deal with Interface if you want to prepare for that sort of thing, so that's the main reason why I don't think it's completely overpowered. It's damn near that edge, but it's just back enough. Like, because you can use your Jennifer Siskos, you can do your Tech Steels or other things. Like, there's enough stuff out there that you can meddle.
I don't think that Jen Sisko's enough for it, and I'm about ready to say that Interface needs to be a limit of 1 per ship.
Especially on scimitars.
It's the one attack negation, and it is attack negation. Let's not try to, call the pig something else. It's attack negation. It's the one piece of attack negation that you can get multiple times per ship.
Yeah.
Everything else is now down to one per ship. That's the one thing that's left. So either Worf is being run by Romulans, so the Tal Shiar has commandeered it, which I don't doubt.
Hey, the Continuing Committee took over CCG, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. But at this point, most people I see are only running one interface generator, and that's fine. Like, we'll get through it. But it's still so tough when you're like, yeah, I just rolled like 4 hits and a crit, and you rolled no evades, and finally I'm going to hit you. Oh, wait, no, you have an interface.
Yeah, or the occasional time when you do see Transphasics, and you forget they have an interface generator on board, and you go, I just rolled the best roll for Transphasics, got it 9 or 10 dice, hits and crits and all, and then you go, oh, great interface generator.
Yeah.
Yeah, table flip. Peace out.
I don't know. That's my mini rant on interface, but...
But there you have it. That's our top 3. My only honorable mention that was not covered would be Chronoton torpedoes. They have limited ships where they are the most effective on, namely, the original Kiana Prime, or the Enterprise E, of course. So they're great in their selected use, but because of how limited that is and the cost, I couldn't rank it very high.
Yeah, Chronotons are definitely good and getting better because people seem to be buffing shields, although I'm still not seeing as much Unimatrix play as I thought that I would, and I hear people talking about it, and then it doesn't show up at regionals at all. I'm like, of the 3 regionals where I've seen tons of builds, I think I've seen 1 player use Unimatrix shielding.
Yeah, and it was just the 1 card. It wasn't like Unimatrix plus Immersion plus Systems plus a bunch of other stuff, was it?
No.
Yeah.
It might have been plus a Systems upgrade, but it wasn't like on and on and on.
Right. Wasn't a domino effect.
I'm just not sure why Unimatrix isn't a thing other than thinking that Borg aren't a thing. Like, has the meta shifted so much that Borg aren't there?
For some people, that's the case.
Yeah, maybe this is better as a final thought. Anyways, you've heard our weapons. Now let's hear the contributor's weapon of choice.
Hi everyone, it's not Picard, and we're talking about secondary weapons. My favourite secondary weapon, almost certainly, is Magnetometric Guided Charge. The Borg weapon upgrade allows you to fire 3 dice up to range 3, convert one of your battle stations into a critical hit, and ignore all of the upgrade dice on your opponent. It's a card I feel basically every fleet has to have a copy of, because it allows you to deal with really high evade bills. It allows you to, as Borg player, shoot at range 3, which you wouldn't be able to do natively on most of the Borg ships. It's just a brilliant upgrade. There are a lot of secondary weapons, and an increasing number of secondary weapons I feel are valid, but Magnetometric Guided Charge does something that no other card in the game really does, and for that reason, it's my favourite secondary weapon.
Hey everyone, it's Natasha from Dude It's Just a Game. My top secondary weapon is Magnetometric Guided Charges. This weapon is a low-cost, high-hitting weapon that is often underestimated. I also enjoy this weapon because it gives you something you can do against highly defensive teams. Ships that roll a lot of defense dice, or more importantly are cloaked, cannot defend themselves against Magnetometric Guided Charges. This gives you a chance to get in under their defenses and do some real damage to their hull while they're not prepared. I find Magnetometric Guided Charges to be one of the best secondary weapons out of there in terms of cost versus utility, and the fact that it's not a discard. So that's my favorite secondary weapon. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina. Here today to talk to you about my favorite secondary weapon. For me, Tactical Station is hands down what I love. I play Federation and Vulcan quite a bit, and in my builds, Tactical Station allows me to put it on a ship, and the neat thing I like about it is I can use it to either add 1 attack to my primary weapon but also if I have any additional secondary weapons, I can use it to disable to add to that secondary weapon as well. It doesn't, differentiate between the two. It just adds +1 attack die to your attack. So that gives some versatility to it. I also like it because you can discard it and gain +2 for that attack. So on certain builds, that makes for a great addition to an alpha strike. And for me, with my Vulcans, add that along with the Tashkatur. That makes a really potent punch, especially with upgraded phasers or Type 8 phasers. So without a doubt, my number one secondary weapon that I use most frequently and love to use is Tactical Station. Here's Steve Stott from Columbia, South Carolina, wishing all your dice rolls are hits and evades. Take care.
Hey guys, this is Daniel from To the Ready Room. My top secondary weapon would have to be Disruptor Beams. Although Dorsal Phaser Array and Type 8 phasers and upgraded phasers are all really good cards, in the end, if you wanted a solid 5 attack die and you don't need to spend a target lock card, it would have to be Disruptor Beams. It's 5 points and gives you the effect of Quantum Torpedoes. And it's much better than Quantum Torpedoes because you don't have to spend your target lock and have one to use the attack. Instead, you could have a target lock to re-roll it and potentially do the extra damage. So in the end, my top secondary weapon would have to be Disruptor Beams.
Greetings, Warp Core Breach listeners. This is Bane of Borg with episode 30, my favorite secondary weapon. I'll start off by telling you the post-Warp Borg ruling time. I still played Borg, and my favorite weapon was the Magnetometric Guided Charge, which allowed the Borg to still shoot at range 3. Had a nice little trick that you couldn't roll any defense dice against. Real effective against cloaked ships. However, the OP environment was changing. Klingons went away. The Romulans pretty much went away. Everybody was playing Feds. They didn't have very much defense dice to begin with, and they had shields. Then, as a Borg player, I was getting clobbered. So, like everybody else, I more or less migrated to Federation. So, when I went to Federation, though, my favorite ship playing Fed is the USS Prometheus. So, my favorite secondary weapon now is a Photon Torpedoes Prometheus bonus Photon Torpedoes. It's a normal torpedo, but if it fired from a Prometheus-class ship, you get +1 attack die, which then takes the attack up to 6, range 2 to 3. And also gives that Prometheus-class ship a forward-firing weapon, or a rearward-firing weapon, that's what I meant to say. So, again, I guess it's not one of those glamorous 10 roll 10 die type things. It's just a simple photon torpedo, but in the environment that we're in right now, it's my favorite secondary weapon. This is Bane of Borg, signing off. Thank you.
This is Big John, fighting out of Da Vinci DreamWorks 2 in South Florida. My favorite secondary weapon has got to be Type 8 phasers. Nothing else has changed the game in the way that Type 8 phasers has adjusted the game in the past year. I really think that there should be something more thematic like photon torpedoes or quantum torpedoes, but Type 8 phasers has definitely changed the way people have played the game and the ships that have been put into use since it's been playing. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. Today we're discussing our favorite secondary weapon. Now, secondary weapons have been a place that's kind of disappointed me in this game. The secondary weapon should be things like photon torpedoes and quantum torpedoes. The trouble is the way they work in Attack Wing is very disappointing in terms of the points and what they do. However, there are some secondary weapons in Attack Wing that I really like and which make the game much more fun for me to play, to give you a much more freewheeling, high-maneuvering style of play, and that is the Dorsal Phaser Array. This is also true to a lesser extent on things like Dorsal Weapons Array and Aft Weapons Array, etc. But Dorsal Phaser Array allows you to move pretty much anywhere you want and still get a shot at any direction up to range 2. And to me, that really makes certain ships like the Prometheus and the Sovereign a lot of fun to play. And to some extent, it really facilitates the way I like to play the game. So that's my favorite secondary weapon. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, so, final thoughts. We're going to pick up on that Borg meta talk.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that the upcoming ships like the Sung type assimilator and the giant Borg cube with sphere and whatever else they may throw at us. I hope that really turns things around for Borg and makes them playable without being either uber or weak or whatever or laughable.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, the assimilator's now back into that who knows when group.
Yeah.
Because it was announced and now it's been shifted with these repaints and stuff.
True.
Because I think it was due in like 26 or 27 and now it's...
27, I think. Don't
yeah. Which
yeah.
I guess we've heard...
Which is still up.
Yeah, we've
It
heard
doesn't conflict.
Officially through 26.
And the solicit for 27 is available still. And the other ones aren't accessible through the usual means anymore.
Yeah, at this point I'm not trusting those until they're on the WizKids event system.
Yeah, I'll grant you that. It's all but confirmed.
Yeah. Just because I know that their product codes have said that there's repaints coming in 27 and 28.
Okay.
And they don't line up with the old solicitations.
Gotcha. Yeah, they just haven't replaced the old 27 as they have 24, 25, and 26.
Right.
Gotcha.
So, at this point, it's all kind of a who knows. But...
yeah, I don't even see the 28.
That's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to go, okay, Borg should be at the top of the game.
No. They either need to be balanced or they need to have been NPCs.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Right now, Federation is sitting at or near the top of the meta.
Yeah.
And if they're not at the top, Scimitars are.
Mm-hmm. And Scimitars are just a hop and a skip from Borg anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they're 6 dice.
Mm-hmm. And they start with agility, and they can cloak, so they can get 6 dice.
They're
dice.
6/6.
Yeah. 6, 6, 7.
Yeah.
You know, like, look at those numbers here.
Yeah, I mean, that's scarier than Borg. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. And the upgrades for Romulans are a lot cheaper than Borg.
Yeah. But nobody's complaining like they were. And honestly, the things that have won regionals this time around are less diverse than the things that won regionals in 2014.
Yeah.
Now, I will
Isn't that
grant you
something?
this. We saw some very imaginative things win. The Hugo's Valjean build.
Yeah.
But
tough little ship.
Yeah.
Little.
And we saw some very creative, like, top 4 stuff that I'm convinced on a different day with some different matchups could have won.
Yeah.
And that's not just at Modesto, that's in all kinds of different venues. I mean, Ben's Robinson build is amazing. And I mean, this is nothing taking away from Todd, but we saw 2 venues be won by Scimitars.
Mm-hmm.
Scimitar prototype.
Yeah.
And everyone's running Officer Exchange Program. And I get it. But, you know, the real lists that intrigue me at this point are the ones that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's showing something that's really innovative. But it feels like at this point, it's super duper easy for anyone to run Sakona Arsenal Dorsals Type 8 upgraded.
Yeah.
And Sakona doesn't discount the dorsals.
Yeah, but dorsals would only be primary, as the Type 8's upgraded wouldn't affect it.
No, I understand that. But you put it on... I mean, you're putting this all on a 3 attack die ship. So you've got...
I gotcha.
Right, you put it on like the Hathaway or the Enterprise.
Still only costs 4 for the dorsals.
Right, it's only costing you 4. And then you've
5
got...
ahead, 3 behind, and around.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's assuming you're not putting it on a 180-degree ship in the first place.
Right. Well, and you should be. I mean,
yeah.
The only ones that are worth doing this on are the 180 forward, 180 back.
Well, it's still worth it, but it's better on the 180.
Yeah, in competitive play, we're going to define worth it as the ships that have 4 hull, 3 primary attack dice.
Yeah.
None of them, the only ones that are worth it are Constitution and Constellation class.
Yeah, I was still thinking some of the other ships with the 3 hull, so you got me there.
Oh, yeah. Right, because Dorsal's 4 hull.
Yeah.
But
it's because of our earlier conversation.
Right. I mean, you can do it without the dorsals, and
right.
you're good to go. But it's like, I probably get myself in a little bit of trouble for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways. The community comes off a little bit hypocritical here, because people are running the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
This Sakona and a whole bunch of weapons thing is showing up all over the place.
I've even run it myself once.
And I run it too.
Mm-hmm.
But I run it in different ways. And I'll use Sakona for different purposes. And I saw Joseph ran Sakona for really different things. He ran it with Ibex Dynasty.
Nice.
And Arsenal and a whole bunch of cheap weapons on the 608 for all kinds of movement. Which is cool. And there's a point to doing that. Right, that's for a different purpose than what other people are doing. My point in saying this is, for all the people that were hating on Borg for being the thing that everybody ran, you can't just go copying the list because it's there and it's winning. Innovation has to happen.
Yeah.
And if there's no innovation, then nothing changes. July 1st is going to come. Officer Exchange Program retires. I know that doesn't affect you personally or your venue, but it affects suggested format.
Right.
That day happens. People are asking, what are we going to do? Well, the answer is not run resources.
There's so many good resource options now.
Yeah. Because here's the thing.
Protocol and tactics come to mind right off the top.
Ready room is legit.
Yep.
Emergency force field.
Mm-hmm.
There are others. Sabotage is a reasonable thing. There are resources that fit builds.
Yeah, like try to design a build around the resource, even just as a mental exercise to just see how they can work. And you might surprise yourself with some interesting combinations or concepts that you might come up with.
Yeah. But my point in saying this is this. If you had a problem with everyone running Borg because it was the thing that was winning, you need to have a problem with everyone running Scimitars because they're a really good ship right now.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a problem with people running Sakona and Type 8 upgraded because that's just what you do. At this point, you need to have a problem with people running Officer Exchange Program.
It's not abuse when you come up with a creative or a funky way to do something. It's abuse when everybody's running it, and nobody consistently is coming up with counters.
Yeah, I loved looking at the build lists from Whitby, seeing 16 builds that approach the game in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I had one big problem. I saw like 14 lists all run Officer Exchange Program.
Yeah.
And then I think 2 lists didn't run a resource at all. One list would have benefited from Officer Exchange Program.
No doubt.
Because they were using an Admiral off faction, and they didn't use anything. Anyways.
Yeah.
The point is, Officer Exchange Program has become a crutch.
Mm-hmm. Much like fleet captains or flagships once were.
Right, and it's like, if you can't build without that,
you're not really flexing your muscles. You're not learning anything. You're not becoming a better player.
And I get it. Somebody ran Officer Exchange Program because they would have been like 2 points over, and so Officer Exchange Program takes them to the perfect point limit.
Right, and kind of like the multi-use of Sakana, you can use Officer Exchange Program in different ways for different reasons.
Sure.
So it has that. But when 14 out of 16 in one event are using it. You kind of have to raise that question mark. Or in the case of Metal Gear Solid, big giant alert exclamation point above a cardboard box.
And I've said this before, but it bears really big repeating here. One tournament does not define the meta.
No.
And 16 people showing up, and almost all of them running Officer Exchange Program does not define the meta. It defines their group for a tournament. Much like my tournament with 5 people showing up and 4 different resources being run does not define anything, but it gives a little piece of evidence that says, hey, some different resources are valuable.
Yes. Shows people are thinking, they're trying, they're putting some effort into some diversification. And hey, the Vulcans must have had a point when they came up with the concept of infinite diversity and infinite combinations. You've got all these cards, people. There's so many different ways to use them and different possibilities. Use them. Try them. And many of you are.
So, I'll put out this challenge. Go to your next tournament and don't run Officer Exchange Program. Pretend you don't even have the card. Build with a different resource. Force yourself to run a different resource. Don't take the easy way out and not run a resource at all. Build a different resource. I don't care what one it is. I don't care if it's tactics, protocol, ready room, emergency force field. I don't care if it's damage check or...
Ideally something you haven't used before or you rarely use.
Yeah.
But at least not Officer Exchange.
Yeah, but pick something. And play it. And if you want, send me a message and tell me what resource to take to my next tournament. And,
same applies to me, folks.
And, I'll take a poll, and, I won't necessarily say that I'll take the most popular one, but I'll consider it. But I won't run Officer Exchange Program, and I'll do that. But I think that it's worth changing things up and trying something different.
And we'll report back once we've got enough responses.
My next tournament isn't until April 16th, so you have until early April to respond and let me know.
That about taps the well for this episode, David, don't you think?
I think so. I think now it's time for the core to go boom. Or for us
Warp
to
core breach in 10.
Oh, the
9,
Enterprise! I'm going to blow it up!
All
7, 6.
We're out of here.
5.
So until
4,
next time.
This is Nick.
3.
And this is David.
2.
Ejecting the
1.
core.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.
We are weird when we're out of it, aren't we?
When we're loopy, yeah.